Hello, the story I'm going to read you today is called At Break of Day. It is by Nikki Grimes and it is illustrated by Paul Morin. Look at this beautiful picture. Once upon a time, there was no time. There was no earth or sky or sea. There was only darkness and the waters of the deep and a father and son who watched over them. The son knew exactly what was in his father's heart and said, "Now, father?" And the father said, "Yes, son, now." Then the son leaned over the darkness and softly blew over the waters. The darkness swirled like a giant finger had dipped into it and given it a stir. And that's how the universe began. Wow, look at that beautiful picture. Then the son spoke, and his voice, as strong as his father's, thundered. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, and at the sound of it the darkness scattered and made way for light. And in that light a myriad of bright angels appeared. And then the light was swept to one side, and the darkness swept to the other side, as though by a mighty arm. The father named the darkness night and the light day. What does that look like to you? Night had a beauty all its own, and so did day. But the sun longed for a touch of color, so he commanded a coil of blue ribbon to unravel across the gloomy haze, and to stretch itself between the heavens above and the waters below. The ribbon seemed rather plain, though, so he added tinted swirls of rose and purple, orange and gold, and wispy puffs of white. "There," said the sun, finally satisfied. The father smiled and called the ribbon sky. Have you ever seen all the different colors that can be in the sky? Early the next morning, the sun called out to the waters, "Gather yourselves in one place and leave space for deserts and plains and foothills and mountains to walk upon." So the waters flowed east and west and north and south, leaving dry places in between. And the father called the dry ground land, and he called the waters seas because he liked the sound of it. Land? What does that look like up here? The son noticed that his father was pleased, so he continued, "Let there be velvety mosses and rose-covered meadows, lilacs and long trailing vines, hyacinths and honeysuckle, birch and beech and hardy trees whose branches are heavy with fruit," said the sun, "and let each one be full with its own kind of seeds, so that there will be growing trees and plants for many years to come." And there were. Look at all those beautiful flowers and trees. By now 3 days had passed, but the father's plan was still incomplete. So on the 4th day, the sun spoke again. Out of his words burst a circle of blazing light, and another spun into a disk of pale silver. The father called the blazing circle sun, and the pale disk moon, and the sun hung them in the sky to mark the days and the seasons and the years. But on what did he hang them? Only he and his father knew. The sun and the moon. "Ah," sighed the father happily, for the beauty of the sun and moon delighted him. Seeing his father's pleasure, the son laughed for joy, and the sound of his laughter rose into the sky and shattered into shimmering fragments. The father called them angels, and the father called them stars, and many of them were angels in disguise. The son could hardly wait for the 5th day to begin. At dawn he headed for the seashore. Then, while his father watched, the sun filled the seas with sharks and seals, starfish and stingrays, whales and walruses, and short-finned and long-finned creatures that glided through the clear water gracefully. Feel those sea creatures? Do you know any of them? The father nodded his approval. Then the son whispered, and the word he whispered became a feather, and the feather traveled on the warm wind of his breath. And in an instant the whir of wings beating the air echoed through field and forest, and scores of birds soared and skimmed and swooped across the sky. The birds looked left and right, but could not find the place where the wind began. Do you recognize some of these birds? "5 days had come and gone, and the son had done so much to please his father. Yet there was more to do. So on the 6th day the son said, 'Let there be bulls and boars, lions and llamas, jackals and jaguars, goats and sheep, and creatures that crawl, and all manner of wild animals roaring and screeching, loping and leaping, crouching and creeping upon the earth.' And there were. The son paused for a moment, gazing at his father. He loved his father, and he enjoyed sharing his feelings and thoughts and visions with him. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have someone else to share these with, thought the father. The son, knowing his father's thoughts, nodded. Out loud he said, "I'll make someone with a mind and a spirit who does not wish to be alone. Someone who loves and dreams as we do. I'll make a person. Or maybe I'll make 2. So the son scooped up a handful of clay, and he molded and shaped a man and a woman. He shaped them with tenderness and care, making them strong and beautiful, with noses that could wrinkle with delight, and eyes through which his love could shine. Then he took a deep breath and blew his life into them. The father called them Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve looked at each other, not quite certain what to do, but the father had already given the son instructions. So the son motioned towards the mighty waves now, crashing across the cliff, and toward the birds of the air and the creatures of the land and sea, and he gave all those treasures to Adam and Eve and to all the human beings who would be born after them. "Take good care of these treasures for me," he said. Their job is to take care of all the things that the father gives them. The son looked toward the father. "Go on," said the father, standing in the background. "You're doing fine." So the son showed Adam and Eve verdant vineyards and lush orchards and field after field of wild nuts and berries, wheat and oats, beans and barley, sweet corn and squash, potatoes and pumpkins. "Here is enough food for you and all the creatures of the earth," he said. "Enjoy." Finally, the son leaned against a mountain and sighed. He looked at the sky, shot through with rose and purple light, and he gazed on the earth, laced with green growing things, and on the glistening sea. Eventually his gaze came to rest upon the beautiful human beings he had made, and he said, "This is good." His father, standing next to him, agreed. And on that day, the 7th day, they rested. There's the earth. I hope you liked that story. That's a different way to tell the story of creation. Some people believe that God created all of the things on the earth and the first people, who sometimes they call Adam and Eve. And when God made the earth, God asked the people to take care of things. So our job now, when we live on earth, is to take care of it and not to make it dirty, and to help all we can to keep the earth clean and beautiful and help the animals and plants grow, and to make sure that it stays nice for the people who come after us. I loved the story. I especially loved the pictures. I'll read to you later. Bye.